United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public participation. Several of you came in right as we started. Do any of you want to participate in public participation? We'll give you time to fill out the form. No, you'll speak as the owner. Great, thank you. Okay, appointed representative and liaison reports. Jim?
See y'all. We're still working hard as the tax department. I hope to know that we got called back for 3 more weeks, if you can believe it. Why are people protesting their taxes? My God. Bill lowered the taxes in Bartonville, didn't he? Or excuse me, y'all lowered the taxes. Y'all lowered.
Yes, because we love our citizens.
That's true.
And we manage our money well.
I agree. Incidents for the month of September went back up to 270. We took a dip last month to 240, or the month before to 249, but 155 EMS and 115 fire. Lights siren, minute 15 seconds. Bobby says he can get out in quicker time than a minute 15. But to the arrival to the scene, 7:12, and average time on the scene is 20 minutes. Incident types for Bartonville. We had 16 for the month, which is a vast improvement. Only 3 injury calls or sickness or illness calls. And that compared to what, 2 months ago was 12. So we're keeping healthy and taking care of ourselves. A motor vehicle accident without an injury or with an injury, 0. Without an injury, 1. Animal rescue, I don't know the particulars behind that. If it's another horse or what, 1. There was no ice, right? Okay. We assisted 2 invalids. And the next 4 items, you can read through it, look through it in regard to volumes by those specific categories. Pretty much everything went fine. They were a bit upset because they had just received a note from the tax department that they were $57,000 short from last year. They asked me what's going on. I said, I just hold hearings. I don't know. Call Miss Smith. Michelle? Yeah, that's it. Cody Miller's the new assistant chief. Y'all know that, right? Isn't that amazing? Little guy grows up. The fireman has been out for 2 months. He's returning to work this week. But he's returning. Stephen. That's awesome. That's it. It's amazing deal. The rest of it's just very sundry information in regard to what they've done in the communities and some of the local periodicals. And if you have any questions about it after you're good, just ask me.
Jim, quick question. So are you guys still supporting the distributing vaccines to homebound individuals? Okay, perfect.
I think they only have like 4 to follow up on the boosters of the 29 or 41 or something that they've done. So yeah, and remember, it's for the entire county. It's not just for here. As always, thank y'all for providing me the opportunity to participate with you.
Jim, thank you again for being our representative. Thank you. Chief?
Mayor, council, staff, and thanks for the motion. That's really appreciate it.
Just understand where that came from. So the council, we feel you guys are doing a fantastic job, and this reward, you guys have earned it. We are giving nothing. We're not nice people.
Appreciate it. 100%. There's your graphs there. The monthly charts that y'all become accustomed to. Our calls for service for September, 96 total. If you see anything in there that strikes you as unusual or have a question about, feel free to ask. Again, those typically generate a report.
How what it was last month?
Sorry,
Can you call what that total was last month?
right around the same, roughly the same.
Much better than, okay.
I did notice there was a couple burglaries in there. Moving on to the self-initiated, 308. That's typically what we do the most of, obviously. 93 of those were traffic stops. Summertime, we obviously have a lot of vacation watches, and we love doing them. September medical calls, is the next graph. We do respond sometimes to those. The September Group A and Group B offenses are also listed there. Provided those charts with you, for you. One public intoxication and one theft. And the September admin duty totals are also included. Do you have any questions about those numbers or hours? You can see the sergeant does spend a lot of time doing admin stuff. So, any questions about any of that information?
Is there anything in here that you're overly concerned about or that you'd like to call out to us as a general concern? With things
Oh,
happening in town?
It's trending pretty much the same. Things aren't, there's nothing really sticks out at this point. We did have a flock hit on one of our cameras that ended up breaking into a home in another city. The vehicle was stolen. We couldn't get to it fast enough, but that happened last month. So if we could have got to it, that would have paid off, but based on the location of the camera, there's no way we could have gotten to it before it went where it went. So,
Was that one public intoxication? Was that on business?
crashes, we had one non-injury on, and it was on Gibbons and Seals, single vehicle. There were no injuries. I believe it hit a utility pole, if I'm not mistaken. National Night Out was a huge success. We could not have done it without Tammy. She always plays a real big part in that, and her staff. So thank you, Tammy.
Awesome.
Well done.
Our department was there, had a good showing. Flock reads for September were 617,000. They went up a little bit. 617,000 compared to 582 in August. 582,000. No idea why, but they just did. Same amount of time, 30 days, they went up. And the DEA drug take back is this weekend. So if you have any prescription stuff you want to get rid of, feel free to bring it up. It's from between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Feel free to, doesn't matter where you're from. You want to bring it up here and get rid of it, feel free to do so.
You always have, you have the box 365.
Yes, we do. It's in our lobby.
Yeah.
So if you know anybody that has ever asked you that question, where do I take my stuff? Just bring it up here.
This on Saturday, will that be taken, received that in the parking lot?
Yes. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Interim town administrator.
Okay, I'm not sure how this normally goes since I haven't been here at your meetings before. For those that don't know me, my name is Corey Ream. I'm the interim town administrator here for the time being. So let's go through the reports here to start. I guess we'll begin with animal services and code enforcement. I don't have any specific things that I'd like to point out really. With code enforcement, I would say that the majority of the calls, you can see what they're listed as in the packet, but the majority are for tree limbs that are hanging into the roadway, that sort of thing. Standard grass and weeds. A lot of it is confined to one area of town. So All American, it's the same company that was doing your animal control is now also doing the code enforcement. So they're paying special focus there. The goal is on compliance. And so I think they're taking not a very firm approach, but really just reaching out, trying to make contact and try to get things corrected at this point. I guess at some point in the future, if they're not getting compliance, we can talk with the council about what kind of direction that you'd like to go and how aggressively you'd like to try to deal with some of the infractions. Most of it is trash and debris, junk vehicles, grass and weeds. The grass and weeds will die down a little bit now and it'll be more focused on the other areas. You have any questions about that?
Ask.
Oh, I'll let you go. And then
Have you all received any complaints from citizens about code enforcement?
I have not. I did receive an inquiry about code enforcement, but they said they had some concerns and what should they do? Should they reach out to council? Should they come to a meeting? And I said, you can reach out to council via their emails. You can attend a council meeting. You can reach out to the interim town administrator, put something in writing, and they said, okay. They didn't say what it was, who it was. So we'll see. That was today.
Just today.
The very beginning, the first week that they did code enforcement, people came up and they were confused about the grass and weeds. Previously, I didn't have any information when that was starting. There wasn't any communication that happened in the office when that started. So people were coming up and they weren't clear on the weeds since we don't enforce weeds on property. And so after talking with Kurt, he's marking on the site the warning notices that it is in the bar ditch. So they were getting the notice and they weren't, again, they would call and they say, well, is it in your bar ditch? And that's where it was. So other than that, we haven't had any issues. And he had surgery and the calls weren't being returned quickly. But other than that, I think it's been.
Are they patrolling the entire town?
They're doing more of a reactive approach on when there were complaints about things, but he's making, he can't get through the whole town in one day, but I think he's making an effort to try to move around.
I can
to
invite him to
different
come to
areas.
the next meeting so he can give you a more thorough report. Would you like
Let's
that?
go ahead and do that, because I would love to understand where they're patrolling, because again, I look at all the addresses and it seems to be in one primary area, and I understand there are some concerns in that area, but I also want to make sure that it's, their efforts are being distributed proportionally throughout the entire street.
It's just limited on time that was authorized really on a weekly basis. So if he's responding to a complaint, then he's looking in that general area and it just happens to be mostly located in.
On a side note, on the animal control services, and I haven't had a chance to do that, but I was going to do a marketing campaign there with a lot of the skunks that have been out. There's a misunderstanding in the contract. It says if people call them, they will provide a trap. There is no fee. But if people use their own trap and call them, then they will charge a $60 fee to remove the skunk. So the community isn't aware of that. So in an effort, whether I was going to do, if we had a newsletter or if we did some kind of postcard, some kind of mailing, so people know that if they use their own trap, there's going to be a fee of $60. But if they call them and they bring a trap out, there is no charge.
I mean, the only inquiries that I've had is they keep, because the person that we had doing it before was charging $20 to come out and get a trap, the animal.
Brian the animal guy.
And I told them that policy no longer exists. And when they found out it was $60, they were upset because if they get 4 or 5 skunks a year, then they're spending $300 to get rid of something that, and there's no easy answer there, except I think it's just a matter of informing the citizens, and maybe by emails or just a general statement that, that's what's going to happen, because when they trap it, then they want someone to come and get it. When they do, then that's when they find out the $60 is there.
And I did have one lady that was very upset. She didn't want it euthanized, but that's state law, what they have to do with it. So it was.
That's what was my next question. So skunks.
Yes, they have to euthanize them.
And they don't come on the weekends, I've discovered. I had a couple of calls on that, where people call them on the weekends, so they don't come on Saturday or Sunday if the stray dogs out.
But their contract, I believe, is up next year. So when we have that contract, that's a conversation.
So
To make
Chief,
notes.
what happens with your officers? You call them.
Get their assistance on the weekends, they come out. So the citizens need, if it's an issue, we need to know about it.
I don't, okay, all right, I'll tell them that.
We've never had them tell us no.
That's what I want to know. Thank you, Chief.
I'll ask them.
Okay, I have another one other question. On this report where it says added to the watch list, what triggers that? I mean, are they contacting the individual and then just monitoring it on a weekly, monthly basis, or what's the procedure there? Because everything in here says added to a watch list. Were all of these violations, the individuals contacted?
I'm honestly not sure whether that's self-initiated, that he places them on a watch list after having issues at that location, or if that's reported by somebody, but we'll find that information out, make sure it's included. We can send it out to you, but then maybe you can go over it a little bit further at the next meeting.
I think it'd be good to get him out
Yeah.
here. I mean, it's been what, a month
Yeah.
or two, and see what's going from his perspective too.
Yeah. There's also an engineering report that was passed around for all of you. Chris is here if you have any questions about that, but it's really standard. Development is continuing, a lot of development activity, development review. meetings. Just the same that you probably had in prior months.
I don't know if this is the right topic, but that stretch of road on West Jeter before you hit Frenchtown, there's all sorts of crap. And I know we tried 3 different sections. Is that the Randy Van Alstine he's helping with, or?
That's where Randy's assisting. So yeah, if you've got questions on that, ping Randy, because he can then take it through. We do have those 3 sections that we tried with the maps, but I'm not sure exactly where they are. So but he does know. Jeff told
There's
me.
pretty massive.
I think, Chris, you were involved in that as well, were you not?
I haven't looked at it for probably a month, but at that time, so what we did is we did a geocell and then a lime stabilized and then a geofabric, 200 feet each. And so when I was out there, the lime stabilized, you could already see was developing some pretty big cracks, but they seemed to come back together at both the geoweb and the geofabric. Now, I don't know if that's still the case now that the weather's kind of changed and everything, if those are starting to grow into those geo, but it's something I'm planning on looking at here in the next week or so.
I think whatever that middle section is, I mean, there's substantial cracking. I mean, it's bad. So I was just curious if we're taking.
And that, yeah, and that's the lime stabilized. And that's exactly why we did it, is because we've traditionally had a lot of problems with HMA pavement as far as how long it lasts, the cracks. Citizens don't like to see, this nice blacktop, and 2 months later, you're starting to get this. And so the idea was to kind of do those 2 test sections because the geofabric and the geoweb especially are a lot more expensive. And so we want to determine if it's worth the effort to go with that route, or if we're better off just doing what we do and then crack sealing and kind of moving on. And so this section that we're doing, we're kind of watching it every 3 months to see what happens and what the costs are going to be, to see if it's worth trying this again next time.
So what's the time frame then to say that middle section doesn't work, or this one's better than another, so we can put it into the plans from a budget for the streets?
We wanted to do a year. We wanted to see a full cycle of all the seasons. And then, we're still going to crack seal it, but we're not sure. This is actually something I wanted to discuss a little bit, is if we crack seal it before the winter, then it's going to change how it behaves over the winter, or we leave it. But they're starting to get pretty big now. And so I'm getting of the opinion that we ought to just put some sand in there and crack seal them before the winter. But like I said, then we won't have a true test case in a year. But I really think it's feeling so bad that we've kind of ruled it out as a good example anyway.
So we absolutely correct them, because if we have another snow again like we did last year, that water getting into those cracks and expanding will be. We're seeing the same thing on Rock Day. Again, there's a lot. We've got a lot of cracks now. When was the last time we cracked it?
I think a year ago, last fall. And so we actually are putting together a townwide crack seal for this fall. One of the things we're waiting for is the new on-call contractor. We're currently advertising. That 2-year period is over. And so as soon as we get the new person on board, we're going to get them going on a work authorization, or whether it's the same contractor with a new contract.
See this same type of system that we did up there on the 200 foot. Have you seen that installed in other areas?
We have, yeah. The problem here that we've really run into is there's not a good solution. Lime isn't a good solution, cement, because in Bartonville, we're getting anything from a sugar sand to a limestone. The soils aren't very consistent. And without doing a lot of soil borings, we're kind of taking a guess as we do things, and the soil borings themselves are pretty expensive. So it really depends on what we want to put the money towards how we want to treat the different conditions.
It's too soon now. We haven't had enough time under bill to realize if this is how it's going to perform long term.
Yes and no. I think, with the weather, a lot of cracks we'll see is they'll start to widen out. And then in the spring, when everything gets wet again, they kind of close back up. And so what we wanted to see is how that cycle behaves compared to the geocell and the geofabric. At the end of the day, we may end up with the lime stabilized is still the best alternative. We're going to deal with the cracks, but as a 10-year outreach or a 5-year, it might be the most cost-effective solution for something that we're willing to live with on an everyday basis.
That's why I remind council, you guys see.
And obviously reach out to me if you guys have any other follow-up questions.
Thank you.
Also have placed at each of your places the monthly financial reports as well as quarterly investment report. So the second sheet, the packet in your packet, it starts with property tax revenue at the top, is what you've been used to getting. That's the standard report that you've been receiving monthly. The top sheet, I think, is really the best overview of where you stand financially. It's one page, it's quick at a glance, and shows you where you are for budget versus actual for that month and that year as of that month, which in this instance would be the end of September, which is the end of your fiscal year. If you look at the top portion of the revenue summary, this is good news, right? The budget remaining is negative in every category, which means that you collected more revenue than you budgeted in every one of those categories, to the tune of over $300,000. Some of that is probably restricted for certain uses, but the majority of that is not restricted. It's unrestricted fund balance that it will turn into. The expense summary also shows that you had a little bit more expenses than what you budgeted. The good news is it's only about $38,000. Of course, this is unaudited, so there will still be some accruals that will happen. But the two categories that were over budget were contracted service, which is necessitated by the exceptional amount of development that you're seeing, and some of that is sort of a pass-through cost, right? You get cost received for development for plat reviews and sort of that sort of thing, and then it's expended on the other side to pay for planning and engineering review for those services that you need to make sure that those are going in properly. The other category is Lantana Town Center grant. So as you receive more taxes in, you pay more taxes out. So your staff will try to budget an estimated amount, but if that goes over budget, that's a good thing because you've also collected more taxes than you anticipated. So in the sales tax on those various agreements. So overall, if you look at the difference there between what you exceeded in revenue versus what you exceeded in expenses, it was a very successful year for the town, and you'll be able to, we'll go into this a little bit more later in the budget amendment. All of this is without any budget amendment considered. So that's why it shows over. Some of that will be corrected later through a budget amendment. But it gives you the picture kind of at a glance to see where you stand financially based on last year, just last year. If you want to go through any of the other ones, you can. I am required to present you the quarterly investment report, which is also here, which really just gives you a picture of at a glance where you are in terms of cash and all of your various bank and investment accounts.
It's this one right here.
It's the landscape packet. It's 3 pages, and you can see that the balance is slightly lower at the end of September than it was in July. That's going to be the case every year. You're going to get money in for property tax one time of year, and your expenses are more evenly distributed. So that's not anything abnormal.
With respect to the financial report, when Corey showed me that, these other reports that you've been getting in your packets, this is an Excel spreadsheet that Stacy created when she was here. And Michael and Sylvia were taking numbers from the software that we now have and plugging them into this. So this report is not an accurate statement of where our finances are. So what we would like to recommend is just this 1-page summary that she just reviewed with you, instead of putting, it's really pretty because it's got all these little charts and spreadsheets, but it's not accurate.
There are just some categories that weren't really captured in the spreadsheet. And so what I would recommend is you look at this as an at a glance, 1 page, maybe not this exactly, but something that gives all of this information. And then the goal would be for your staff to highlight for you where are you over budget, where are you under budget, so that you hear about those things early in the year and can do something about them before the end of the year, or as there are additional funds available, or if you need to make changes and scale things back. So I'll be working with Sylvia on that as well. I'm sorry, Sylvia, with Tammy on that as well, to kind of change some of the things on how they're reported going forward.
Are you okay with that?
Let me take a look at what you're doing. Because there's some things that I think we still like out of the older report.
You'll still
I
get
mean-
a front page with all the highlights.
I would still want to provide you some trends and make it a little bit prettier, you know, give you some graphs so you can see where you stand overall, where your biggest revenue areas are and expenses. And that sort of thing.
Once a month.
Yeah, and then Corey, also, we had the previous town administrator just do a quick write-up on the front, to say, hey, here's some major changes.
For October, I'll be able to do that and give you an executive summary. I really just wasn't here for September, so it's hard to talk about it.
Fair enough, just because we're having a conversation about making adjustments.
I think that's the most important part for you, really, is the narrative, to talk about why things are low or high or what's changed. So that'll be included for sure.
Or anything else?
I think we can all talk more later, I'm sure, about just how things have gone the last week or so.
Okay, why don't you give us, take
A
5
little
minutes on
brief.
that
Okay,
topic?
sure. So last Tuesday was my first day here. I got to jump right in with a DRC meeting the first week with no power in the building. So it was just kind of a whirlwind start with council meeting and the DRC meeting. But once Thursday and Friday rolled around, I got to breathe a little bit and got a little bit more understanding on all the various development projects. You have a significant amount of development related activity here. And because all of your site plans and everything go through the public hearing processing from Oakville P&Z Council, it's a lot of administrative work on the back end. So my goal in the last week was really just to make sure we weren't missing deadlines on public notices, that sort of thing, just to get everything published and letters put together to make sure we could still meet the deadlines for the dates that the applicants have been told. So I've had a lot of conversations with your various developers, property owners, engineers, landscape architects on all of these projects over the last week, which has been great. Unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of time for other things outside of development. And so Tammy's been picking up the slack on a lot of that. But I think that now that it's a little bit more manageable, now that when I hear a reference to a project, I know what project they're talking about, and put together some spreadsheets so I can cross-reference who's the contact on this when I need to call them. It's a little bit more manageable now, and I think I can hopefully help to pick some of that back off of Tammy. We're still trying to get caught up on things, you know, bills still have to get paid and the air conditioner still has to get fixed. The just kind of normal housekeeping duties at town hall, but I guess that's the bulk of it. I can answer any questions if you have anything more specific. It's been a fairly easy transition. We have a great engineer and planning team that I've worked with before.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Okay, consent agenda. This consent agenda consists of non-controversial housekeeping items required by law. Items may be approved. Items may be removed from the consent agenda by any council member by making such request prior to a motion and vote on the consent agenda. Item number 1, consider approval of a contractor services agreement between Brad Hodges for gas well inspection services beginning October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022, and authorize the town administrator to execute the same on behalf of the town. Item number 2, consider approval of an interlocal cooperation agreement between Benton County and the town of Bartonville for the purpose of providing construction associated with the improvements for the turn lane at FM 407 and Hilltop Road, and reconstruction and improvements of Hilltop Road, and authorize the town administrator to execute same on behalf of the town. Item number 3, consider approval of an amendment with Taylor Technologies for the purposes of Brazos citation system software and services, and authorize the town administrator to execute same on behalf of the town. I want to pull out 2 and 3. Have a quick comment on those. So do we have a motion on item number 1?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda. Item number 1.
I'll second.
All in favor? Item number 2, the only quick question is that this references and Hilltop Road. So the county has the agreement with the county, so the county's gonna cover Hilltop Road and we're only gonna cover turn. Is that, are we all in concurrence on that?
So it's a maximum of $50,000. The other 200, I can't remember the full amount that's in here, for the town's portion of the road and the turn lane, the county is covering those expenses.
Just for edification, so this was our conversation and agreement with the county commissioner. She was very helpful and the county is doing the rest of Hilltop. We only have a small section of Hilltop right by the Tractor Supply. She agreed to cover that section if we cover the turn lane. So we're covering to extend the turn lane. If you recall right there where that turn is, it's too tight. It's too tight for buses. It's too tight for trucks. We have a lot of school buses that turn on that for going to Geyer, going to Blanton, Harpool, yep. So name all your places. Okay, great. Do we have a motion?
And that maximum is 50,000, is that correct?
Yes, and that's what we wanted to make sure that we did because we got copyright.
The total amount for the project is around almost $250,000, and the town's maximum that they would pay is $50,000.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 2 and 3.
Second.
Item number 3, so quick question. So Chief, on this software, it looks like we're replacing the existing software. Correct. So what happened? What does the existing software not do for us?
Existing software is rather antiquated. It's the state from year to year will come up with new things that we have to report based off of contacts with vehicles for racial profiling. Every year I provide a racial profiling report to y'all. And they've added so many more categories that we have to capture data on. And officers actually have to physically, every time they make a traffic stop, a vehicle contact, they have to enter that data, whether it's a warning or a citation. So they're spending an absorbent amount of time with this data input. And then on the back end of that, we have to consolidate that data, capture that data in order to satisfy this report, which it's an absorbent amount of time for myself and the sergeant to do.
That's fair, Chief. So here's where my concern is. Again, I'm asking, this is not criticism of the police department. But right now, what I would have expected of a software company is we pay maintenance. They enhance that software package to meet the new and driving state requirements. It sounds like they have not done that.
They're not going to.
Are we comfortable with this new vendor, because there's maintenance fees in here associated with that software as well, that they're going to be updating the software to meet new state requirements, so we're not going to have to do an initial payment again?
Absolutely. They continue to do that every year. So they started out with they follow the trend of what the state is requiring us to do, because it's a web-based product. So we have a little bit of stuff here, but it's mainly online, and we tap into that and it provides us with a report. So if they come back next year or this next session and say, yeah, we need to capture, whatever more, then they're going to adjust that on there. And it's compatible with our CAD software that we're using at the county Sheriff's Department.
Council, any additional questions? Do we have a motion?
I don't know.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Item number 4, site plan, 1911 East Jeter Road. Continue public hearing to consider a site plan for Happy Huts LLC, being all of tract of land being described as Block A, Lot 2R, Bartonville Town Hall Edition, Town of Bartonville, Denton, Texas. The property is located at 1911 East Jeter Road, Bartonville, Texas. The council continued this item on September 21st, 2021 meeting. Staff presentation, Corey.
Sure, you'll have to forgive me. I'm not able to introduce all of the applicants because I haven't met them yet. I'm assuming this is Rick Hopper.
Nice to meet you, Corey.
You too. We're just doing this during the meeting instead of before. So this item was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had also, I think, continued their previously scheduled meeting, but they were able to hear this at the October the 6th meeting. And they approved the site plan as presented with, I think, a minor condition that the fencing meet the town's ordinance. And so I think there's, and you can probably speak to this better, I think there was some conversation about the fencing being masonry fence, and then also the height of the fence as your ordinance allows for it to be lower as you get near the road. So whether that be sloped down or stair step down in some way. And then I think there was also discussion with an adjacent property owner about potential changes to a portion of the fence. As far as I'm aware, if you were to approve the site plan, I would ask you to just state the same condition that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That can be approved tonight, even without those details worked out, should you choose to do that. It's something that could easily be reviewed by staff to ensure that it meets your ordinance before any building permits are released.
About the fence. Oh, my name's Rick Hopper, 1911 East Jeter, Bartonville, Texas. The fence. So the town ordinance calls for a 6 foot, well, the first 25 feet, 4 feet for safety. So when you drive up the road, you can see cars coming, and then up to 6 feet. No more than 8 feet. So a 6 foot brick or block wall, 400 and some feet long. It was unanimous in the P&Z meeting that nobody really wants to look at a wall, but nobody had a good solution. So Diane and I, my wife and I, we drove around for 20 minutes all over Bartonville right before the meeting, kind of come up with so I think I have a solution. And if we need to take it to the Board of Adjustments to get a variance for against the ordinance, we can do that. That'll be a piece of cake before we do any landscaping or wall building. We could build a whole building between now and then. But what we'll do is, what I'm thinking is, since there's so much equestrian fence and we don't need the privacy, I mean, this house has been there for decades next to a business and there's never been a problem. And since I own the house next door to the business, I wouldn't put anything up there, but my wife wants a little privacy. She doesn't want people wandering onto our property from the commercial property because we're going to have some tenants and stuff. So what I'm going to propose, I'll just give you a little sneak peek, is the first 100 feet of about 100 or so feet of equestrian fence with some trees and to soften it up with some crepe myrtles or something, because we got crepe myrtles lined up all in the front already anyway. It would tie right in. And then we jump up to a 6 foot wall and go ahead and do the wall back there. And we'll make the wall look just like the building. So the stucco and the color, and, you know, it'll look right. And then before we decide what to do on the back, I want to talk to my neighbors to the north, because I have 2 neighbors that are concerned about what they're going to be looking at. And they may not want to look at an 8 foot tall wall. We've designed a pretty nice building. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the elevations, but we've designed a pretty good looking project. It looks a lot better than what's there right now. So I'm going to get them involved with what we designed for the wall in the back. If they want more privacy and they want an 8 foot wall, then I'll do an 8 foot long wall along the back, and then on the north side, and then I'll do an L shape. I'll come up 20 or 30, maybe 40 feet, so that I think Roy, he doesn't have to look at anything. I think one of the concerns is headlights, because that little hot fire road will go all the way around. But headlights will be blocked by a 6 foot wall as well. I like to get my neighbors involved to see what they would rather have. So that's my proposal.
So let's talk a little bit again before we get into the concern would be, I think we do need to get the wall issue resolved and in agreement before you start breaking ground. Just to make sure that we're all in sync and we don't get into a situation where we're not happy with each other at the end result. And love the fact you're talking to the neighbors. I think we need to bring those in with P&Z to finalize exactly, to make sure that we put in the final documentation that this is what we've agreed to, and the town's committed to as far as against the ordinance and the adjustments that are being made.
So we could propose that we agree to do the wall just as the town ordinances call for, and I will build the wall if you guys want me to do so, up to and including a 6-foot tall wall up to 25 feet from the road, I'll build the wall. So I'm perfectly happy complying with the ordinance, but nobody in town's gonna like it. So anything we do other than that will be compromised, and it's gonna be a compromise that happens at the Board of Adjustments and the P and Z level. So
Yeah, and because I also want to have a conversation before we finalize this as to what does that mean? I mean, right now, we share a little bit of parking. Heck, your guy skateboards in the front of.
that's his lunch break.
Yeah, no, and he's a good guy. I told him just don't crack his head
Oh, yeah.
on the concrete so we don't have to spray it off. So, but
So,
he seems like a good guy. But anyway, want to sit there and talk, and we need to finalize exactly how we want to work that agreement right now.
oh, you mean on this side?
We've done some sharing of space. You've allowed us to do certain things. We just need to, if we put a wall up, we kind of negate some of the sharing of parking.
Okay, so just to be clear, sorry to interrupt.
Please.
There won't be a wall between us.
Okay,
There will only, the wall is only required between a rural business and residential.
got it.
So that, I'm talking about the the west side of the wall between basically my office building and my house.
Got
What
it.
we're going to do here is we're actually going to add parking. So all our officers park in our parking spots already, and we love it, to be honest with you. The more the better, as far as I'm concerned. And so and there'll be actually more parking stalls, and it's going to be a nice congruent, should I say, it's going to flow nicely from this property to that property as it is. And the one nice advantage is we're going to move our dumpsters to the other side over by where my barn is. So when the trash guy comes, he can just go back and dump the dumpsters over there. I know I break the rules all the time by leaving the doors of my dumpster box open because I'm lazy. But yeah, there are worse things happening in this town.
For me, coming down this way on Jeter, seeing the wall would not be great. So the fact that you're willing to work with your neighbors to do something a little different, whether it's a equestrian fence or whatever you decide, I think is great. So I appreciate that because I don't want to see a wall either. So
Well, hey, it may
That's fair.
turn out that we decide to do equestrian fence all the way down, because all along the back and around my personal property, it looks great. It's a good quality, high quality vinyl, so it's not going to rot and the paint's not going to come off. So if we went even further back and just did some trees and stuff, but I'll get it approved before we get going on that. If you guys are willing to approve my project, so I can go pull permits and start bidding the project out and getting the thing going on, getting off the ground, get down the runway. I'm willing to go hit up Board of Adjustments and P and Z on some ideas in the meantime.
So again, in council, I would be okay with approving it, but no construction starts until we finalize exactly what the perimeter wall looks like, to include consultation with the neighbors. Again, let's just make sure everything's squeaky clean before you stick a shovel in the dirt.
So
There- Can I,
Please.
for clarification, just, would you mean that no construction would start or just a fence? Because you could approve the site plan as presented, even with the condition from P and Z that the fence meets the town ordinance. And they could still start the construction of the building, but no certificate of occupancy would be given for the building unless the fence is constructed and has been approved. So, I mean, there is still an ability to negotiate and discuss different types of fencing on whatever is proposed and approved by
just block my
whichever other
CO.
board. Until the fence is installed.
So then the verbiage would read something to the order that if construction started, it would still, the wall would still have to meet the ordinance. And at that time, if they couldn't come to an agreement to make some type of a negotiated agreement, then the wall would come to wherever the planning and zoning said it had to be. Is that correct?
Right, I mean, the wall is required today under your ordinance, not wall, we're saying wall, but a masonry fence. But I think the desire is to find something that's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And so the worst case scenario is if there's not something presented that they approve, that I think Mr. Harper would say he would build the masonry fence that's required and allowed under your ordinance today.
So, but how long, I mean, again, how long before you'd be ready to break dirt anyway?
Oh, probably. Steve, what do you think? How long before we could break ground, you think? I'm thinking a couple months minimum. probably first of the year.
And that's what I'm saying. Let's get the fence, resolved in the next 2 months. That's what I'm saying. There's no reason to let this thing languish. And then we all forget what we agreed to tonight.
So he can go to P and, go ahead.
I'm just not sure how long it will take for working with your team to put together what you'd like to see on the fence, having the negotiations with the neighbors, working with the town, and then getting the notices out for the meetings and having the public hearings and that sort of thing. So I don't want the holdup to be on us and doing notices, but it's either way. There is the ability, though, for him to start construction and still obtain approval on a different type of fence.
And I'm still
in the
concerned that this thing will drag out until the thing is constructed for several months.
Hey, Bill, I have an idea.
Please.
Steve just made a suggestion that if you guys just approve the site plan with us meeting the code, and since it's already unanimous that nobody really likes that code, at some point before we actually build the wall, I'll just go ask for a variance and run it up the flagpole all the way through. But I'm agreeing right now to do it according to code.
Okay.
So if you just approve it according to code, I don't want to build that wall. Josh doesn't want me to build the wall. Nobody in P&Z wants nobody wants me to build that wall, but I agree to build the wall. So between now and the time that wall gets built, I'll come and do a variance. So you can just approve it according to code.
Okay. And again, my concern is, I mean, again, we start talking about what the building material is going to be. What is it going to look like longer term and whatnot? I mean, again, everything looks good when you first build it. What does it look like 5 years from now? And that's kind of, I always want to make sure that we're in sync on that.
And we sure will.
So.
Make a statement. You're willing to bring that wall down 100 foot from frontage road?
Oh, no,
from
I'm
here?
willing to build the wall all the way to the front of the street.
Okay,
I'm willing to do it according to code, which is 25 feet from the road, 4 foot tall, and jump it up to 6 feet and go all the way back.
Okay.
I'm willing to do that. That's what the code says. So, but what I'm going to propose later, we'll leave a mystery for now.
okay.
It'll be nice. It's going to be nice.
So the plan where we're at right now is, again, we approve the site plan, and then we are, again, got no issues, we build it to code, he comes back for a variance. So right now, we've got the wall, we've got the masonry wall that is to code in there, he's gonna have to come back for a variance.
Yeah, piece of cake.
Great, thank you.
Reminder, Mayor, it is a public hearing.
Yeah, absolutely, no, that's where I was going to. Do we have anyone that wants to speak in favor? Do we have anyone that wants to speak opposed? Council deliberation?
Close the public.
Oh. Time being 7:50, we're closing the public hearing. Council deliberation.
Said my piece. I mean, willing to meet the ordinance and he's willing to go above and beyond. I don't want to hold up the construction on. All good.
I wouldn't say use the term go above and beyond. He's not fighting the code and he understands. that he's gonna have
To me,
abide
he
by the code
is.
until he gets out.
To me, he is.
In that code, he's agreed to that, but one thing that would concern me would be what he does right now, that takes care of the problem for the next foreseeable future, but nothing's forever. He may move in 6 or 7 years. And what we have to do is look at that wall as to what it will do with those lights should he move and someone turns in, because 100 foot back, if that's what he ends up going with, there's still those lights when someone turns in there, it's gonna be able to shine right back and hit his house. But he's got to live with that. He and his wife have agreed to do that. What we have to concern, I think, is what's gonna happen in the future.
And right now we have it, that wall's gonna be there, and then we can have a conversation about it. And then we can, again, have because he'll come into, well, it's his house and whoever buys it, knows that what they're getting, blah, 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 blah. But if we're comfortable with this, then we can go to a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve item number 4 as written.
Good, thank you. Item number 5, Marty B's. Continue public hearing to consider a site plan amendment for Bry Farm Properties LLC, being all of the tract of land being described as lot 1R-2R and lots 1-2R, Block A, Dinkman Plaza Edition, Town of Bartonville, Denton, Texas, or Denton County, Texas. The property is located at 2664 FM 407, Bartonville, Texas. The town council continued this item on September 21st, 2021. Staff presentation.
Senior Counsel, I believe you're Kara King here, representing the property owner on this. This is a somewhat complicated project if you look at the cover sheet, only because there were many, many variances involved. Some of those variances went to the Board of Adjustment on October 6th. Some of them are included as part of the site plan. So all of the variances that were requested from the Board of Adjustment were approved on October the 6th. Immediately following that, the site plan was also approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 6th. That site plan did include a couple of variances, including an alternative parking surface, which was previously approved by the council in a different location earlier this year, and as well as the sign. So the site plan that is included in your packet is what we're asking for approval for tonight. With the condition, should you choose to include, with the condition that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved it, that a ribbon curb be installed on the north end of that east parking lot. Is that correct? Did I miss anything there?
Yes, they left it open to a ribbon.
Okay, sorry, ribbon.
So can you put up a picture and show us where that ribbon curve is being discussed?
Hold on one second. Tell you where to scroll.
Corey, would you like me to go ahead and state my name and address for record?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name's Kara King with McAdams. Our address is 201 Country View Drive, Roanoke, Texas, 76262. And then if you scroll down, I believe it's to slide 6. That will pull up the amended site plan. So the barrier or ribbon or edging that was left open for Marty to decide is located on the north of his east parking lot where it meets Kim Cloud's property. So it's going to be good to know. And that was suggested by Chris, the town engineer, to prevent the gravel from going on to somebody else's property. The rest of the property is Marty's. It's not an issue on the east or south side. But the north, it not being his property, he suggested putting some type of barrier there.
You confirmed that that would be actually on the property line or on the, I guess, southern side of the property line, because it looks like maybe the gravel is already encroaching on the lot to the north.
Yes, ma'am. It would be on the property line.
That was the only condition identified by the Planning and Zoning Commission, though. Everything else, some of it is cleanup for things that are existing and some of it is proposed improvements. And all of it was approved. Do you have any specific questions about any of the things in the site plan that you'd like for Kara to discuss?
Assume the ribbon is not an issue. Condition, I'm assuming the condition was not an issue with you, Marty, or
To the comments from planning and zoning. Other than, again, I know they approved it, but any additional comments from them?
Not that I'm aware of. I was not at that meeting, but it sounds like everything was approved. There was some discussion and that this was just a solution that was proposed to help prevent that gravel encroachment. And that was really the only concern that I'm aware of that was addressed.
Can we ask Chris to give us some information since he's the one that proposed that?
Sure.
Kind of discussed before, there's several variances included with the property. I think those have all been cleaned up and are good with P and Z. The one thing that I pointed out was, since that property along this east side, that part of Marty's property, we want to do something to kind of landscape that tile for Marty's ended. And the discussions were a ribbon curb, similar to what was done on the property directly north of his building. That's what's out there now. Just through discussion, a landscape ribbon would be fine as well. Just something that kind of ties off his property line and clears it up for when that next development comes in.
So quick question, I'm sorry, please.
What type of material is there that's going to hold that ribbon?
That's something that's going to be discussed.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So because you guys are looking more landscaping, right? So, a landscaping with a steel barrier or something kind of to hold the landscaping in with mulch or whatever that's going to be, just to kind of lock it in, make it nice, clean edge.
Clean edge. That's what we're hoping for.
So with the additions of the two buildings, Marty, what's that's going to do? You run a very successful business. We are very happy for you. You fill up all of those spaces today. What's going to happen with parking overflow after you take away part of the parking with new construction?
We'll cover. The new construction is located right here. That's the added building that's being added to this amended site plan. It does not take away any parking. It's actually just a little landscape area right there. So there's no parking being removed. And as you can see in the chart below, we are parked at 280 spaces for Marty B's. And we currently have, or we need 280 spaces for Marty B's. We currently have 294 spaces on site. That is Marty's, his north lot and his east lot. And as a part of this amended site plan, they are all platted together. So it is parked, and then the new building will not take up any additional parking. It will not remove any parking. It's just part of a landscape area.
Okay, so you're talking right now about, again, the accessory building to the smoke building, but then we were talking ribbon, the ribbon to keep the rock from flowing into Kim Cloud space. So help me understand why are we talking about these two things at the same time? I'm getting a little confused.
The ribbon was as part of the conditional approval per P&Z. And so that was brought up on the one thing to approve the site plan with that conditional approval. The amended site plan overall was turned in to show the addition to Marty's building, to bring it up, bring the site plan in as a whole, add the east parking lot, all that, east and north parking lot are all existing. So they will be approving the amended site plan with the requested variance. The ribbon is part of the conditional that was added for the variance.
Got it. Because we opened up the conditional use permit, they added that to it to resolve what they saw as an existing issue. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on for her? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Public participation. Do we have anyone that wants to speak in favor? Do we have anyone that wants to speak opposed? Time being 8:01, we close the public hearing. Council, any additional deliberation? Okay,
To the ribbon or whatever it is.
we have a proposal, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the site plan for Marty B's.
Second.
Estate.
Do we have a second?
With the condition that P and Z recommended about the ribbon.
With the conditions that P&Z recommended.
Second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Have a great evening, Marty. Preliminary plat. Trifecta Estates. Discuss and consider approval of a preliminary plat for Trifecta Estates subdivision containing approximately 20.26 acres. Proposed development will create 8 individual single-family lots and 1 HOA lot. The property is located at 459 McMakin Road, Bartonville, Texas. Staff presentation, Corey?
Mayor and Council, this is an 8-lot residential development. It's on approximately 20 acres, just right around the corner here. There is a construction of a new road that really just runs through the middle of the property to access all of the 8 lots. Do we have Greg or Michelle Mills here? Great.
Come on up, and again, we'll let her finish her presentation and then we'll go to you, sir.
This preliminary plat was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on October the 6th. There were no conditions added as part of their approval. I believe the engineering, I don't know, Chris, you have any other comments? Everything that I show that all of the planning and engineering comments have been resolved and it is recommended for approval at this time.
Perfect, thank you. Chris, any additional comments? Terrific, thank you. Sir, state your name and address, please.
Greg Mills, 1201 Knox Road, Keller, Texas.
Thank you, sir. Now, time for your presentations, whatever you'd like to add.
Our presentations are the plans. We just submitted the subdivision based on your land use and all of the ordinances and requirements that we've been made aware of today. And just looking for approval and trying to break ground out there.
Great, thank you. Is this that plot of land where they sealed up the gas wells?
That's correct. Yes,
Okay.
two wellheads have been abandoned and sealed up.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments, sir?
No, we have had 2 environmental reports on that and that it is a clean site.
Thanks, sir. I'm going to go and open up public participation. Time being 8:04, opening public hearing. Do we have anyone that wants to speak in favor?
Mayor, it's not really a public hearing on this one. This is just for,
It's not a
Approval.
replat. It's just a preliminary plat. Sorry.
Okay, I have public hearing in my notes. Okay, so
Sorry.
no worries. Again, we can absolutely adjust.
Questions?
sure, you can ask questions.
The HO, I should have asked it while you're up there.
Greg,
The,
you mind coming back up? No
The,
worries.
The HOA lot, is that the one on there that's the lot 9X 1.23?
That is for detention pond,
Okay, so that-
actually a retention detention pond. It's catching all the runoff water. We're actually going to have a constant level and which will be the retention part of it. So it will be a water feature and with a couple of fountains on it. And it also will serve as a detention pond that will collect the runoff and then release it at a little bit slower rate.
where will that be?
That will be in the southwest corner of the property, lot 9X.
9X. I was on P and Z when you guys brought this thing in earlier. There was a lot of concern about people in the area about drainage. I presume with the ponds you're talking about, can you talk about how that was addressed?
Yes, basically, we're collecting water not only from our 20 but also from about another 10 acres that runs onto our site. It will all be directed into that detention pond and reduced at a rate that is allowed, actually a little bit less because I told the engineer to torque it down a little bit. So it's a little bit less than allowed. We'll be running off of that site post-development.
You look at the drainage plan, I gotta commend you the way you grabbed that, all that water coming off of Wolf Hill.
There's about
coming
5
down.
lots.
Yeah, and then
runs
hitting
on
that
this.
berm and then it all pushes that in that corner. And that's the only drawback that was to this piece of property was the input from the citizens, because they were concerned about that water. And I think you've addressed that, and I gotta commend you for doing that.
So, yes.
So do we need to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to need you to put in a public participation form.
just add that, as Chris mentioned, we've already received the final plat submission and it's being reviewed right now. So I know that drainage is a concern on the property. I think Chris is ensuring that any of the drainage concerns are met to meet or exceed your ordinance in place right now.
If you two bring that to me and then go up to the podium, state your name and address and tell us what you're concerned about. Yes, we'll do a little bit of interaction to get your question answered. Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Stacy Smith. I live at 601 McMakin Road. So our land neighbors, the land that they're developing on. So, and I apologize, I was out of town when y'all did that, October 6th. The questions that we have had with that the Kennemers have also brought to me with pictures and things, and he might be able to help because some of it might be education on our part, but when you see the big rains and you actually videotape where that water is running, there's a lot of concern of where that retention pond is being placed and how that runoff occurs and how that's really going on some of the big rains that we have, how that's going to not only overflow into our property, but keep it from overflowing like it does over to the Kennemers and Rouse and Wolf Hill. Because it's just hard to understand looking at that plat, how that particular is going to really resolve that.
So are you on the south side of his property? Okay, so Chris, you've taken a look at the drainage. Can you address that concern?
And so I understand the concern about the pond being located at the southwest portion of the property. You can see the previous page is the existing contours. You can see how all of it sheets flows kind of across the property. What the developer's actually done is they've created some pretty good sized ditches to capture all the runoff on the north end of the property. Yeah, you are. So what he's done is he's actually captured all the runoff for the most part on the north end of the property and then channelized it in a large ditch between what's labeled as A-2 and A-1. And he carries that down into that pond, as well as he's run an additional ditch along the south property line across lots 8, 7, and 6, where he's captured all that runoff and prevented it from going to the property on the south, and also brought that into the pond. And the way the pond's been designed is so it detains runoff greater than existing, and it will release it across McMakin at a slower rate than it crosses right now. And so that's, you can see where the pond is sized now. There's actually additional room on the north between the road coming in and where the top pond contour is. One of our comments is to actually increase that a little bit and reduce runoff even more. And so there is room to do that. That was one of the original P&Z concerns, is whether or not the pond had enough room to be sized bigger if necessary, and there is. So can you, or I'm sorry, I misspoke, across the street to the west.
Yeah, I was about to say, because right now McMakin does not flood.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was looking for the label and I got a little sidetracked.
So between his trifecta on the, I guess south of 8, what's 8, 6, 7, 8. Between her property and that trifecta property, what kind of range is going to be?
Nothing. He actually captures everything even that comes across existing for the most part.
You're here.
Well, he's going to have a ditch. So he's going to dig it in. And you can see, if you go to that previous page with the existing, pretty much the whole southeast portion of the property currently drains across into the property to the south. And that's all the runoff he's going to be capturing.
where Stacy's property is.
Correct.
So utilizing you guys here.
Here.
Because I did, oh, sorry. One of the issues, just not understanding, we can see all this on paper, but when it's all built, said and done, and they've sold the lots, and now, again, everybody is dealing with runoff. How do we know, and again, we want to work with y'all, we're not against, but how do we know that these ditches are really going to capture? I mean, I've got pictures that the Kennemers have sent me, that other people have sent me just when we've had these big rains of, hey, how is this going to get corrected or even help? But how do we know that this is really going to do this? How do we know these ditches are truly going to capture when we have a 5-inch rain?
So one of the things you need to remember is it's not going to capture everything. So it's not, if we have one of the major heavy rains, you're going to get the same level of water you get today. I mean, these are not going to be constructed. The intent is to make sure you get no more water than what you get today. And I fully understand. I mean, I live on the backside of a hill, and literally my neighbors came in and did a bunch of landscaping, and now I've lost 4 inches of topsoil, and I've spent thousands of dollars trying to reroute water to do it. I get the concern, but their obligation is to make sure that it does not make it worse. And in fact, what they're stating is, and this is where we have to trust Chris as the engineer, state, hey, what they're putting in will exceed, basically do more than what it does today. Will hold more water, and you'll get less water into your area than what you're going to get today.
So just educate me. So the ditch you guys are running up along here.
Correct.
Okay. And so y'all are taking that ditch all the way down.
Yeah, see where it connects you, right? See where that cuts in like that? That's the beginning of the ditch. So all that water that used to come across back there, they're now going to capture that right to the pond.
I would agree, Mayor, that typically the goal is it's not going to be approved if it's causing downstream impacts or impacts to the neighboring property. I think in this case, because of the runoff that's coming across the property, I think that based on looking at the plans, it actually will improve the condition on the neighboring properties, not just not harm or make the condition worse. I think it actually will cause improvement in the condition.
Which is fine, yes, and that's what the owner of the property said as well. Again, the point is with her is I don't want you walking out of here thinking that the problem you have today is going to get resolved, because that's not the intent. The intent is that you do not get any impact beyond what you're getting today. Looks like it's going to be better, but you're still, let's face it, we have these big belly washers. We're going to still have the same problems that we do today, and we've got them all over town. When this comes through, I live on Rockgate. Rockgate literally floods. That's why we're talking about Jeter and water not going over Jeter. Water does not go over Jeter. It goes over Rockgate.
You're right down here. I've seen it many times.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
McMakin. McMakin. So McMakin doesn't see it, and none of it. I've driven most of the town, but probably the worst place is on Rockgate, right there by the equestrian center, because of the way it flows over. So again, you're going to get it better than what it is today. To your point, it's the town's responsibility, the town's engineer's responsibility to make sure that we put these things in place before the construction is done.
So, okay, so maybe to clarify a little bit, again, educate me. So right now, when you look at the back of the property, and our property was the same way because it was all the Nolly estates there. There's berms that were created because they were stopping years ago water from running off and coming down. And once you take those berms out, which you guys will, because you'll be developing on it, that shelters water, because we don't really have a problem with that property. Obviously, when they built that, built the gas, it just flooded our pond, and now our pond sits at the gate, which usually we have 10 or 15, which is something we haven't even been able to fix. And like you said, same thing, there's no more, dirt there. I mean, it's going to take major issues. So my concern is that where those current berms are, we're now basically saying, hey, water, come down to this line and come over here where we already have a problem with everything coming here. I think that's where I'm
Okay. So I think the key to look at it then is right now, all that water just kind of comes like this. You know, it might run off the berm, it might kind of wiggle around, but eventually it just comes down. And so the whole point of this is anything that comes down ends up here. So whether the berm used to be here and then kind of funnel it over if you had a problem over here. Well, as this ditch runs east to west, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper as it goes this way.
Okay.
So it's designed to not only pick up this tiny bit of water here, but pick up a much greater water here because it's bringing both this to the west
Okay.
and picking up whatever's through there.
So is it gonna, so where that gas well pad was built?
Yep.
That all of a sudden started making our pasture flood? So when we get water, we look like we're just one big lake.
Yep.
Is it now going to actually capture that and
Yes,
filter that instead of allowing it to just back up over here?
exactly. So this little area here, that's the remnants of those two gas. That is the actual pipes.
Okay.
So that spot is literally where you're worried about, where it was, you know, running around the fill of the gas pad. So that ditch comes right through there like that to capture that.
Are y'all taking, are y'all lowering the height of that gas pad? Is that what y'all are doing? Taking that out?
I think for the most part, the grade at the stems is the same.
Okay.
So
Just one.
we need to, again, unfortunately, we're way off track.
Sure.
This, we want to make sure you get the information you need. It would have been better if you had been able to attend when this happened with P and Z. We can do a couple of things. One is Ed, can I defer this and go on to the next action item and let the town engineer spend a little bit of time with her?
Sure, you can move it to a later point in the meeting.
Okay, great.
Mayor, I'm sorry, can I also just add, I just want to remind, I guess, for those who are not aware, as this project moves forward, as it is being constructed, it's going to be inspected along the way, right? We'll be making sure that it's constructed to plans to actually meet that. So it's not like we just say today, oh, the drainage is going to be fine, and then walk away and never look at it again. So as it's being constructed, that'll be tested and inspected throughout the whole process. And if there are any concerns, you know, Chris could submit an RFI to the engineer to make sure that it's actually draining the way it's supposed to.
Which is fine, but I think I still would like to see her get, before we vote on this, would like to see her get a better, more comfortable feeling on this. And we can move on to a couple items. So let's just postpone this. What else do we have left on this? Yeah, well, we'll have to, yeah, unfortunately. So what we're going to do is let's stop. Chris, we're going to stop. We're going to cover all of the rest of, so we're going to need you to wait for a little bit. We're going to cover all of the rest of the items where we need Chris involved. We will then go on to the other items, allow you to break off, spend some time with Chris, make sure you feel comfortable with it. We'll come back and then have a final discussion on that topic. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
What do I need to say to stop item number 6 and move on to item number 7?
Which ones we gonna go
So
through?
what I want to do is I want to go through the rest of the things that deal with planning and zoning. So which will take us all the way through item number 9.
Right.
And then we will go on to item number 10. That will allow Chris to break off with the resident and have some conversations so that we do not keep the other folks waiting. And then we'll go and go from there.
You can just say you'll have item 6 occur after item 9.
Okay, we'll have item 6 occur actually after item 10. We'll use that as
Item
this
10.
breaking point.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 7, conditional use permit site plan, Bartonville Town Store. Public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the existing conditional use permit site plan for the operation of a restaurant and retail store located at 96 McMakin Road, Bartonville, Texas. Staff presentation, Corey.
This item is for the Bartonville store that it already has conditional use permit site plan approved. This is for an amendment to that to allow for an accessory building, which you can see a visual of in your packet. This also was taken to the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 6th and was approved. And I guess we're just looking for approval from you. I don't believe we have anybody here. Oh, I'm sorry. Tim House. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tim House is here. He could speak to that, but there are not any other concerns by the staff on this item.
Great, thank you. Tim, please state your name and address.
Tim House, the store address is 96 McMakin, Bartonville. My personal address is 240 McMakin. And so I'm here. I hate to take your time. Actually, this is I consider it a small site plan amendment. We're getting a 10 by 16 foot building that Mark Hitchcock has found for us. Architecture is very similar to the store. It will be painted to match the store. It'll be a storage building located in the northwest corner. Has no impact effectively on parking because it's in the pure elbow of the parking lot. And as you know, the pure elbow, you can't park there, you'd get trapped in. So I think it just helps us run a cleaner, more efficient operation. Appreciate your consideration.
The whole chairs, tables, just storage stuff for the store, like.
Yeah, it's just a storage building. It's effectively a storage shed, except it's a relocated, self-sustaining building that a guy built as his man cave. And then he got tired of it and let Mark Hitchcock take it away. So.
Tim, do you have a picture of it?
I think I submitted that. Yes.
That it should be.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's being,
Okay,
and
got it.
being as optimistic as we are, we've already taken the liberty to paint it white and black to match the store. So.
Got it. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Make a motion.
No, we need
Public hearing.
participation, so we need 1 moment. Being 8:24, we open public participation. Do we have anyone who wants to speak in favor? Do we have anyone who wants to speak opposed? Time being 8:24, we close the public hearing. Council debate? Great, thank you. We have a motion.
Motion we approve an ordinance amending the existing conditional use permit site plan for the operation of a restaurant and retail store located 96 Macon Road, Bartonville, Texas, for the placement of an accessory building.
Favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thanks, Tim. Okay, item number 8, public hearing to consider the site plan for the First Church of the Nazarene Lantana Community Church. The property is located at 22 East Jeter Road, Bartonville, Texas.
This should
Okay.
be a quick item.
Yeah, okay, so we do have staff presentation. I'm going down the list. And we've got open public hearing, but then we've got to defer the motion, so.
So just for background reference on this item, there were several variances that were requested and were heard at the Board of Adjustment meeting on October the 6th. All of the ones that were able to be approved were approved. There was one item related to the exterior materials on the new portable buildings that they were requesting that was just not noticed clearly enough. And so that had to be re-noticed. So that was just published in the paper again on Saturday. And so we're having a new public hearing for that in November, on November the 3rd, to consider that variance. And so we're asking that you open the public hearing, continue it to a date certain at the November 19th, November 16th town council meeting, so that we don't need to re-notify for this public hearing as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, time being 8:26, we open the public hearing. Council, do I have a motion to continue this item to the November 16th, 2021 meeting?
Motion that we continue this to November 16th.
Have a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Corey. Item number 9, restaurant with drive-through. Public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the provisions relating to the definition and permitted use of restaurants with drive-through service by amending Chapter 14, Exhibit A, Article 14.02, Ordinance 361-05, the zoning regulations, Section 2.2, Section 13.3, subsection C.15, Section 17.3, subsection L, and Appendix C, land use land. Staff presentation, Court.
Sure. This is another item that I've kind of jumped in the middle of, but you've already made some progress. It's my understanding that this was a discussion had with staff and the council, maybe members of the council, and staff was directed to kind of move forward with drafting this amendment to allow for drive-throughs other than coffee shops as a use in only the general commercial district. That has been completed and was taken to Planning and Zoning Commission, where it was denied on October the 6th. So should you choose to move forward with approval, this would require a supermajority by the town council. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
So
for your
was
consideration.
anyone here in that session? So wait till we get to staff, because we'll absolutely want to get your perspective. Great, thank you. Time being 8:27, we are opening this public hearing. Do we have anyone that wants to speak in favor? Do we have anyone that wants to speak opposed? Time being 8:28, we close public hearing. So when we put this up originally, the thought process was open it up and allow drive-throughs with a conditional use permit, which is kind of what we thought when we originally sent this to P&Z. So what was their general, what was your gist of why they did not like this?
So one of my concerns at the time, I was back in the back row when I was with Bill Nolan, we were discussing the other item, so I didn't get to see the full impact of this. So, but, and Tammy, you were there.
I was not there, but from the conversation that I had with Sylvia afterwards, from what I understand, when they asked who requested it, she told me her response was Whataburger. And that was not the case. It was a staff initiated request. So
But the impression that I got from that conversation, that bits and pieces that I got when they voted on that, it kind of surprised me, and Dale looked at me and went, wow. But they were talking about fast food such as the Whataburger that was mentioned, and I think even McDonald's. And I think from our conversation, and this was never brought up in the meeting that I heard, was we had, since this was on a commercial site, that this would be a conditional use permit. And that was never brought up, to my knowledge, it was never mentioned about it having to be a conditional use permit. I think that may have had an impact, knowing full well that would have had to be approved.
And that was the intent. So when we originally proposed this, what we wanted to do was the capability of being able to have this discussion, but it would still be a conditional use permit so that we could make the decision on a case by case basis as to when it crosses there. And I mean, really, let's be honest, kind of the general thought process is what goes on the far side of 407 to allow us some flexibility. It also allows with our discussions, quite frankly, with the developer as we have conversations about the 380 agreement, which we all have angst about. Please.
Why did you deny this? And they just said to the fast food restaurant chain.
So here's where we're at, and Corey articulated, it requires a supermajority. So it requires 4 or 5 approval in order for us to add drive-throughs to this process.
I would like to add also, even though this is a staff initiated or a city initiated, I'm not sure really how this kind of started in the first place, but because this is not a use that's listed right now, when the first one does come up, they will just request that you consider adding this. So it's something that you would be revisiting at some point in the future anyway, and making a decision then on what zoning districts they may be allowed and whether it's conditional use permit or not. So I think the goal was to be a little bit more proactive and go ahead and add it now, require conditional use permit so that there aren't any questions when that comes up, which we do believe is on the horizon.
We have a history of this part not overruled. We have done in the past. So the question is, again, we want to have capabilities to be knowing that this does not authorize anybody to put drive in. All this does is say they can request it.
So,
please.
Part of the discussion was also the definition of a coffee shop. You know, Starbucks serves a little bit of food now. Whataburger will serve coffee. And I think part of that was just the clarification of making sure P&Z did what was right for the town's intention as much as anything else. So I think from a council perspective, it's not overruling as much as it would be just providing some clarification that they were asking for.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Chris.
So in thinking about this, Why don't we? Right now, if it's gonna come back up, if we get a fast food or somebody wants to come out here and they're gonna have to ask for it then, why do we need to approve it now?
So, well, what I was going to say is if you never want to see a fast food restaurant out there, that's one discussion. If you want to allow a business to say, I can drive through, regardless of what that drive-through might be, other than a coffee shop, right? This creates that capability to be able to have that discussion, but there's still the conditional use permit in here, which means it comes back here for a vote. But it does open up to sit there and say, okay, come in for folks, and there may be some things that we, that would want a drive-through that we would not anticipate. Right now, it's fast food. Nobody wants to see a McDonald's. Would they be happy with a Chick-fil-A? Would they, would they be happy with something other than, the standard? And then the discussion becomes, where does it go? Because again, as I would think about it, I would not think about it anywhere that would impact the citizen part of it. We do have land that is controlled by the city. It's on the far side of 407. So that's just kind of, do you guys want the flexibility of being able to do that later? Yes, they can bring it forward, but even anybody else that may have another use for a drive-through, even other than a fast food restaurant, would even something that we would want to consider, might not even have the conversation. They don't allow it. So, Wi-Fi get with that.
So this is written to only include restaurants with drive-through, not other types of businesses. But I think it's important to note that we're not only talking about QSR type of fast food restaurants. Lots of restaurants are adding the option of a drive-through, especially after the last year and a half of COVID impacting their operations. So it's something that a lot of other restaurants are doing as well. Not as a typical drive-through, but having a drive-through window available. So it may not be only fast food, and it may be that you might be interested in allowing something like that, but not a traditional fast food restaurant.
I would sit there and say, we don't authorize anything by approving it, and we allow the flexibility to make a decision. And again, it's just a matter of what you guys want.
The safety net is having that CUP there, we just got to come back before the council.
So this opens it up to more options, or is this more restrictive if we pass this?
This opens it up. It opens up to more options.
More
but
options.
But it still goes to a CUP. So,
But it doesn't affect like dry cleaners or pharmacies or anything. It just affects a drive-through restaurant. Is that just, okay. Or, yeah.
Nothing
Fast food.
additional, no changes were made to any type of business allowed by right. So this is only with the conditional use permit, not anything that wouldn't require that.
Thank you.
Permitted uses of the restaurants with drive-through service by amending the town of Bartonville code ordinances as represented.
motion passes 4-1. Thank you, council. Okay, so yeah, Chris, this is your opportunity to spend some time with Stacy. So make her feel comfortable with it. We're going to continue to work down the agenda. Once you're done, come back and we'll finalize this. Thank you for your patience.
Think on the lobby.
Yeah, absolutely. Item number 10.
I'll do it. Turn on the light.
Let's wait till we get somebody from staff.
I cannot address this.
Go ahead, Ed, go.
Okay, great. Item number 10, discuss and consider approval of an ordinance amending the town budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2021, as adopted by ordinance number 698-20, providing for adjustments to the general fund, wastewater fund, street maintenance fund, capital improvement fund, reserve fund and COVID-19 fund. Corey?
Okay, again, this is an item that I did not really work on a lot. I just reviewed after the fact. You have a consultant that you've been using occasionally for some various financial, I guess, advice and feedback. Sorry. And she jumped in to help with this as well. If just kind of going through from the beginning, you start with the general fund line item adjustments. These are all changes to the existing budget. So, for example, you would be adding.
Or may I jump in on this?
Sure.
This is cleanup of last year's budget. So, okay.
Sorry,
Just want
yes.
to make sure we're all.
This is for cleanup for September 30th, last fiscal year's budget. I think we're already talking about an amendment to this year's budget for some things, just for some cleanup, because now that we have last year's numbers, we can more accurately kind of project and make some changes for this year, especially with staffing and that sort of thing. So you'll be seeing, I think, more routine budget amendments probably in this coming year. But this is quite a bit of cleanup. It's a significant amount of additional revenue, just like we talked about in the monthly financials earlier in the meeting. Almost all of these revenue line items are increased except for the gas well inspection fees. And then the expenditures are increased in certain areas and decreased in other areas, really just to balance things out. The biggest thing that you'll see here is a transfer to reserve fund of $235,000 at the lower end of your expenses in the general fund budget area. That is additional revenue that was not used to cover any additional expenses that occurred during the year. The actual transfer following the audit will likely be more than that, but there were some additional funds left, budgeted funds in certain areas, just because there are still some outstanding invoices and things that will come in over the next 45 days or so till the end of November that will still get booked back to last year. So that's the estimate for transfer to reserve fund. Like I said earlier, not all of that is unrestricted, but the majority of it is unrestricted fund balance. Trying to look and see if there's any other highlights that we can talk about. If you have any other questions, we can maybe get into stuff more. There's not really anything else that was a major change that I can think of. The biggest thing is you have significantly more sales tax than you thought. That's going to increase your fund balance quite a bit.
Do we have a motion? You have a second? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Item number 11, discuss and consider approval of an amendment with William C. Spohr PC for bookkeeping services for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021, and authorizing for the town administrator to execute the same on behalf of the town. Tammy?
Okay, so Bill Spohr has done the town's audit for years, and he stopped in a few weeks ago, and there's been some changes to the governmental auditing standards. And so what he does is he comes in and he closes up, he works on the books, closes up the year end, does transfers, and then he audits the records. And the changes in the standards is that he can no longer do that without having another third-party review. So he found another auditing firm that can do the audit portion of it, that will not charge, that will keep it within a little bit more than what he charged. So there's two parts. That's the next item on the agenda. So he worked out his fee was going to be roughly about almost $4,900 this year. So together with his fee, he reduced his fee for bookkeeping is $1,500. You'll see on the next agenda item, the auditing firm came in at a reduced rate with an agreement with him to pick up the cities to do his audit after he closes the books. Next year, it will not, he'll come back with another agreement unless we find another bookkeeper to help close up the books. The audit will not be as cheap. They came in, you'll see it on the next item what it'll be, but it'll be probably at a much higher rate. But they did it at a discounted rate this year. So that'll be the next agenda item. So if you want to agree to accept his engagement letter to do the bookkeeping, and then the next item is for the audit. The crime control and the community development corporation do contribute towards the audit. Their budget's not nearly as big as the rest of the town's general fund. So they do, I broke out their fees. They pay like $250 each. So they'll pay $100 each of his $1,500. And then on the next item for the audit, they're charging $3,800 for the audit. So $3,500 will come from the town's general fund and $150 each from the crime control and community development corporation.
So the total of those two would be $8,700 for next year.
Next year, I have no idea what the audit.
That's for
will
this
be.
year.
That's for, yeah, that's for, it'll be, yes, in the current fiscal year. Yeah. So the audit is for the fiscal year ending
Got it.
21, but it's
For our
paid for,
21.
For your next year's audit, probably start working on that soon. I know it's already, it's just now the beginning of the year. But a lot of auditing firms like to do a mid-year where they come and they visit, maybe in July or something, so that it's not all due at the end of the year. So maybe get started on it a little bit sooner. But we'll probably be polling some other cities and getting some numbers just to plug in as part of the budget that I was talking about for this current new fiscal year. Because this is not a good estimate of what it actually would cost to audit all of these funds. It's a small budget in Brixton cities, but you have a lot of different funds and there's still a lot of transactions. So
Last year cost.
well, his audit has been typically about it's less than 5,000, but an audit. So when we shopped around a few years ago, and the next lowest that we could find from some other firms were, you're going to look at anywhere from probably $12,000 to $20,000, if not more, for an audit.
So the issue here, Jim, is again, and we've seen this across the board, people that we've had for a long term have kept the prices fairly stable over the years. And we've been the beneficiary of that. With the law change, you can't do both at once. You're stuck in this situation. Bring somebody else in, it's going to cost us more. He's done everything he can for negotiating with the secondary firm, to try to keep the costs under control for this last year's budget. But yes, we go in the open market next year and we're going to get rid of you.
And we'll start shopping now. And again, and when this firm does the
That was
audit.
my question. I was just trying to get an idea on what the delta was between last year and this year. And then I didn't know if he was quoting, if they're going to lock in anything for next year.
And we'll find out after they do our audit and they've seen our books, then they'll know. They'll give us an idea of what they'll charge us.
Thank
I would recommend you release an RFP or RFQ. Get some information from multiple firms and see what they're looking for that money and what you're willing to pay. I know it's hard to have that hit to the budget, but it's really a good thing to have a different firm doing this. It shouldn't be the same firm doing your internal audit, year-end rules, doing your external audit.
Fair enough. Council, any further discussion? Do we have a motion on item number 11?
For the bookkeeping services fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021, and authorize the town administrator to execute same on behalf.
Carries. Thank you, council. Item number 12, discuss and consider approval of amendment with MWH Group for external auditing services for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021, and authorize the town administrator to execute same on behalf of the town. Tammy just gave us the presentation. Do we have it? Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Item number 13, discuss and consider approval of a purchase of a town logo monument for council room. Tammy.
So this
There it is.
This one is,
It's beautiful.
That's your 4x5.
that's the one. All right. I'm on it. Love it.
So Mayor, when you were gone last
job,
month, you asked me to present to council, and without a visual, it was a debate whether we had the 4x5 or the larger, but we've got the paper and.
I wanted a 20 by 20. but-
They wanted to go bigger, much bigger. And I
Go
was like,
big or go
that's a
home.
Oh, you
lot
like
of
this
money.
size?
I do, yeah.
This town of Bartonville, that's the main.
Got our
So-
tree.
So did we make a decision on, because we've got three options here, the black with silver, the silver with black, or black and white. Did we make a decision already? Or we
The
just had to-
consensus was just like the photograph, the black, I think it was the second one, the silver with black. Yeah, was the consensus, the middle one.
Yep.
Great.
Is that what you like?
Yep.
Silver with black. And you like that size?
Yep.
So we make a motion?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I will be happy
Been
to
a fun
second.
one.
Silver on black.
I will second happily.
All in favor? Motion carries.
Okay.
Tammy, thank you very much. I
Thanks,
mean, again,
Tammy.
this obviously, since that thing fell down on me, I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God." So,
I know, and I wanted it bigger.
and I literally tried to flatten the thing out, and it was stuck together, and it was just another mess.
That's great.
You should have seen, so it was so funny. She had it all, and I go, she's like, no, like, it's never gonna stick again.
So,
No.
It was funny.
okay, item
Good.
number 14, discuss and consider approval of the purchase of town council dais furniture. Tammy?
Okay, you have in your agenda packet. You get there. Yes, so you have in your agenda packet, there's the concept design that we came up with several years ago with portable, the tables all move together and you can move them apart. They're with casters. We sent those out a few years ago, got prices, and at that time was decided not to move forward on it. Then during the budget season, said go for it. So here we are again. So I sent it to a couple people. Nobody responded except for the custom woodworker in Louisville. He did come back with a price. He offered two prices, one with plastic laminate and one with a plywood, hardwood painted color. Those prices are in there, 15,000, 16,000. Also reached out, Randy Van Alstyne, his company, they have a mill worker, and he was a delight to work with. He was an interesting fellow. He did bring out some samples, and also Randy Van Alstyne sent, it's sitting on your paper, he's talked about wood prices, because you look at the prices and you still think it's a lot of dollars, which it is. The original furniture concept that we looked at in 2016 from the company was like $35,000 if we just went to a company to buy it pre-made. So having it custom made, you're going to get a better product. The Mike Henry and Associates, they're going to have, it's going to clamp together, but you can take it apart, you can move it, we can use it. Either way, both concepts. We can use it for the meeting, the 2 extra tables. There's not 3 like one of the pictures. For court, so we can have the extra tables used for the jury. We'll have the tables for the prosecutor and the defendant, or we'll have the tables so we're in the room. They are in again on casters, so if you, for the elections, we can push them against the wall. We don't have to. I don't have to, with Chief's help when he sees me in here. Move the tables over. Some of these tables that you're sitting on that side are very heavy. We really don't have storage for them, but moving them around. Again, it's up to you.
So when we originally had this discussion, part of it was
And here's
that
some samples.
we didn't want to bring this stuff in because we wanted to use it for meeting, see how much we use this.
I'm sorry. This is the example from the second one.
This is a plywood.
No,
No.
this is the mic. This is the
Oh, the
second
mic,
one, and then all the colors.
All this paid for, right?
No, but you have
Police,
money in your-
police, right?
You
Court.
have money in your capital improvement fund that's set aside, so it's not coming out of your general fund. There's $45,000 set aside in your capital improvement budget.
I see
That was
these.
set aside when we did the remodel.
I wish.
But we don't have, we only have about $5,000, $4,000 on the equipment. No, that money that's coming in now, that's not broadband. That's not sewer, that's not. Sewer broadband is something else. All of these are broadband. This is all the second side, and this would be the countertop that he describes in there. That's what it's like.
There we go.
That's what it's like.
You're in California.
He
That's what
he
they want.
describes it in his bid. It's not, this is the
I
mic,
love this. No, it's nice. No, this is not the new. It is. New.
it's this. Clear stain, cherry raised, well, those are some of them, but his is whatever he's proposing would be hard, the stuff.
Okay, so it's actually wood and not
Yeah.
pre-finished.
Yes, ready? Just kidding. I totally joking. I almost did. Just one of the few that I like. This is a good one.
I think you brought those for color samples, but that is what the top would actually, if you had a black top. And he put his color, I mean, and then he redesigned it and he felt like the judge and the middle seat and the mayor seat should be a little raised. If you look at page,
Had the privilege of going to Denton County this week in probate court, and I kept looking at furniture as I was walking through the
Oh,
courthouse.
did you? And did you like, see anything you
And,
liked?
And in this probate court judge's deal, there was one that was
His
that
turnaround,
stuck out, and it was real wood.
the Lewis,
It had the
the,
raised panel on the front.
Yeah.
That's their ceremonial courtroom.
Well,
his
we
scope
could
of work is
do weddings, Ed.
furnished, finished, installed. Is maple or cherry construction. And then the black laminate countertops with maple or cherry hardwood edge. His turnaround is, I think, 30 days. The other woodworker, which is the 15 to 16, is about 3 months out. And that's the other.
So this would actually be made out of 100% maple or cherry wood.
By Mike Henry and Associates. Yes, if you look on page 299.
They were the cheapest?
No, those were the, if you look on page 299. This is from the millwork,
This is the Randy Van Alstine guy?
that's the millwork, the company that does the millwork.
Price. Jeez. And for real wood, huh?
Most of them have the raised in the middle, raised seat.
Well, a lot of places have, for the judges,
A
they do.
platform,
Yeah,
right?
for the judges. You don't have to do that.
Okay.
We don't have to do that. We can take that out. For a lot of places, the whole dais is raised.
So would the mayor be raised?
But you don't have,
Okay,
we can
good.
take, we can
Can't
take
have
that.
that.
We don't have to raise that middle.
Yeah. And you can take the two out for jury.
All the,
for
yes, so all
that's
pieces move.
Movable.
They're, all pieces are moved.
Casters were that?
Yes, they're all with casters and then they're clipped underneath so they come apart.
Ah. So easy to.
So if you have a smaller meeting or an extra 2 tables or make it longer.
So up to this point, again, we did these tables for 2 reasons. One of them was we're cheapskates.
Yeah.
The second one was your community room, you could call them out, you could move them around. whatnot. If you go and look at any other town council in our local area, maybe the least of people.
The original design.
So we have 2 designs, 2 different companies, lots of different prices.
Built
The
my
cheaper
person-
wood, the original design, up to $16,000, or the other one. It's totally up to you.
So did you have a conversation with them as to what happens next summer? As to if prices of lumber and everything comes back down? whether
You
they
have
can
this
get
little
that?
sheet from Randy.
I know.
I'm not a wood expert. This is-
Inside, I looked for plywood here about 2 months ago, it's $77 a sheet. I need 110 sheets. It came down to $34, and that's still way too much money, but I can't believe the price.
So again, if we're gonna do this, and I hate the $16,000 option. If we're gonna do it, let's do something that we can be proud of.
Absolutely.
Well, the $16,000 is plywood covered with plastic laminate with paint grade.
It's gonna peel in the weather. No.
Too much money for something cheap.
Yeah, and the humidity and all that, that's not gonna hold. That's true. We can just, if they can throw in some duct tape.
We have been there and done that.
Yeah. I like the Mike Henry and Associates.
To that base wood, and at some point will come.
Yeah, I agree. I like them.
But yeah, he gives you the original design and then the raised seat design. See, that's, you just gotta decide.
Because it's made out of maple and stained.
And then you have all your stain colors. This is gonna be, oh no.
What?
when we go with stain colors, so what, decide your option first.
Stain maple original design.
Second.
Hold on, which one is stained maple original design? So which of those placards is stained maple?
Stain maple.
Sample.
This is just the wood itself. We're not.
So
looking
yeah,
for the
that
color.
would be a maple wood. So you're either
Yeah.
choosing a maple wood or cherry wood.
Stain versus clear.
So then stain. so if
Versus
you're
that
gonna
white
go- Then
one.
you have to choose your stain color.
Show that one. Oh no, show the clear one, Ed, the lightest.
So
Yeah,
those are just
that's just clear.
Yeah.
We don't want that. We're not San Francisco.
So
They love that. We're not IKEA. So it's
Mayor, if I may, so you're choosing, if you're choosing stain maple original design, you're choosing maple wood. So you're choosing his original design, not the middle raised.
Yes.
So then you have to choose your stain color.
Choose one of those on those.
Did you say brown?
So this reminds me when we chose the color for the building.
How about the one, Ed's got this hand right there. That's a good
What's the
right
other
there.
one? Show the other darker. Oh, yeah.
Runner up.
Be careful, if you give us too many choices, we'll argue over 3 shades of.
Those.
Well, these were just some samples. Here's all the colors.
This makes me
Don't need to see
happy.
them. One of those right there would.
Remember the and our building, the colors were all.
The light one.
So like the carbon's nice. Or this ebony carbon.
With a lot of this with him. What was
I just did my floors and I'm telling you,
We were just brought out wood.
Fine with me. Yeah, I like that.
clay's good.
If you guys are good with this, I mean, again, we're gonna get into shades and nuance and,
I
Does
wouldn't
that
even
make
look
you
at that.
happy though? It's just so.
We got it right there.
okay.
What one? Let me see. Can we put a little ebony? Can we put a little ebony on it? Just a little bit? That one looks like,
Oh, well, what we need to do is
you don't want
talk
to
him
do
into
cherry.
putting an inlay in the center where the mayor sits with Bartonville oak tree on the front.
So what about this? It's like a cherry and an ebony right there. That,
As long as it looks like that.
yeah, it's just got a little bit of a grayer tone, a little bit.
Sir, pass it around.
Okay,
Just get us close, Tammy.
right here. That one right there. Right here.
So have people waiting.
Right, all right.
There.
Well, if you
That
do
one
get
with the
design,
blue
we'll
on
be
it.
back with some color choices.
At the corner.
that will,
So it's that one.
You can get us
just
close to that.
With a little gray, so it gets
Tammy,
rid of the cherry.
One of those options will get us close to that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right there. It's on, it's circled.
The color option is close to this.
Show Jacqueline that
Let's do
one.
that.
Bring that here for a minute.
But we have that one right there. It's
So
on
guys,
there.
let's get down to the point then. Which one of the vendors do we want to use? We've got Mike Henry and Associates and we've got,
It won't be that.
Stain maple original. Is what you said.
oh, yes. So that means it's Mike, is the Mike something Associates, is that the one that works with,
Yes, that's,
that's the one that works with Van Alstine?
yeah. So would you want to say that and then the final stain you can have?
Yeah.
The
It's a better price.
Jacqueline and Bridget,
The females.
the final stain color?
I'm good with that.
You good? Yeah. We'll figure it out.
So what we're looking at approving is stained maple original design for $22,888. Okay, do we have a motion?
Okay, you got it.
Make a motion that we do the stain maple original.
Second.
Can you check on Josh real quick?
To the restroom.
Okay, do you mind if we hold?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. I know we've got a form, Ed, and thank you very much for pointing it out.
And thank you for being on Josh's side right now. And here he comes.
Okay, we have a motion on stained maple original design for $22,888. We have a second? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council.
Thanks,
Okay.
Tammy.
Well, but they have to discuss it.
Oh, they're done. They're done.
The color can be determined by.
Either way.
Now, Tammy, that's only for 5 pieces, or is that 7? Is that the 2?
No, that is for 7 pieces.
7 pieces, right?
7 pieces.
Okay.
Okay, council, just talk about what we're bringing back in.
We'll decide after, I mean, we'll, like when he gets it.
There's still a lot of things that need to be discussed on that for trifecta estates. We've opened the public hearing, we've closed the public hearing, or excuse me, I actually need to close the public hearing.
You got rid of the public hearing. I
That's
messed
right.
up your notes, I'm sorry.
No worries, yeah, we're good. Okay, but we still need to vote on it, correct?
A second. Just go.
Oh, good. That was new furniture. Ooh. It's over here.
You still have any concerns, or at least you understand what we're at. There's still several more steps in this process. Okay. Council, do we have a motion? Give a second.
I will second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Time being 9:04, we are adjourned.
There's one more item on your agenda.
Oh, yeah, we do have one more agenda. I'm sorry. My apologies. Yes. We have a 75th coming, birthday coming up on October 20th. Josh? I'm sorry. I may have been given the wrong date.
Just a little bit.
So, happy birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
When's your birthday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday. Happy 75th. You look great.
Thank you.
Good Botox.
I got enough gray hair. to be
Good 75.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, time being 9:05, we are officially adjourned. Thank you very much. Please just keep an eye out, because there'll be more meetings on this. We want to make sure that you're comfortable with what they've got going on.
You're
And
welcome.
we
Are you happy?
understand-
Does that work? Thank you, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.